We are having to deal with a fiscal situation that we did not because of the new administration in Washington. In fact, many will recognize that when Governor Hogan left, there was a $5 billion surplus in the state of Maryland. We came into this legislative session and saw a $3 billion deficit. I'll mind you, that was before anybody was inaugurated in mid-January. We all knew the situation that we had when we walked into the chambers in early January. I think the anger that we just saw right there is more a reflection of the recognition that this state over-relies on federal government. And now all of a sudden changes are being made at the federal government because people want to see a change. They want to see a more efficient government. They want to see lower taxes. And we're getting angry because it's affecting us differently, because we over-relied on government jobs rather than private sector jobs. That's what the problem is right now. The problem is that we continue to pass legislation that adversely affects Maryland businesses. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about this technology tax during the BRFA conversations. But the very industry that Governor Moore is trying to promote in Maryland, this General Assembly is going to pass a tax on those businesses. You cannot tax your way through to prosperity. And that's what this legislation would do. It's actually what we heard yesterday. Shouldn't we be partners and tax all the people, all the businesses that we're trying to promote? I don't think that's good business sense. I don't think Pennsylvania's doing that. Virginia's doing that. We know we're not seeing these types of tax increases in North Carolina and South Carolina. They're getting all the jobs and seeing double-digit economic growth. Maryland, we're flatlined. No growth at all, if any. It's because we're relying on the federal government and state government and local government and county government to employ people in Maryland. And if you're doing well, as the governor said in Maryland, well, we're going to tax you higher too. People that do well aren't just born well. They're not just, I'm doing well because I have a certain job. People that do well because they work hard. They go out and they work 50, 60, 80 hours a week to be productive, to bring money into their companies. And the governor is saying, well, you're fortunate, so we're going to tax you a little bit more in this bill, this budget. Governor needs to remember, again, when he stepped into office, his first budget that he introduced says we are in a fortunate fiscal condition. Fortunate fiscal condition. That doesn't sound like we're in a $3 billion deficit. Sounds like actually things were left pretty good to the new governor. And again, in 3 short years, we've gone through $8 billion. And we're mad at the federal government for that? I think it's a little misplaced there. I think it's a little misplaced that we want to be angry at the federal government because of our budgetary woes. Mr. President, outside of that, again, I think we're trying to have very polite discourse going on through here. The immediate comments that we heard right away attacking a new administration, again, my colleague, the whip, I think is unfounded in trying to do that. I think Marylanders want to see that we are taking on this responsibility ourselves. We're not blaming federal government administrations. We're not blaming the previous governor. We right now are making the decisions that will affect Maryland's futures. We are making those decisions. The federal government, not the previous governor. We are making those decisions. And we have chose this year to add $1.6 billion in new taxes to find a way to balance this budget. Republicans yesterday put up an amendment that says we can balance this budget without new taxes. Got bipartisan support on that. We'll have bipartisan support on our budget and not on this budget. That's telling a lot, that we were able to come up with something that was able to balance a budget without having to raise taxes. Sure, different priorities, different sets of what we think are important, but at the end of the day, it comes back, and I know we had an argument about this, wants versus needs. We are in a needs crisis right now. We need to focus on what our needs are, not our wants. When we can do that, we will be able to find a budget and balance a budget that can be done without taxes, without increases. And that's what Marylanders are expecting us to do. Thank you, Mr. President.